Oh, yeah, no, I'm just taking the moment to do some of the stuff that I'm doing for the other job. Yeah.
Kevin, I think we're about ready to start, right? All right. Will you start us out? Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to you down here, you up there, everyone all around. It's Shabbat all over the world, give or take an hour or two, depending on where you are. But we won't talk about that. It's Shabbat here and it's Shabbat now. And it's wonderful to see you all. So we want to begin, as we always do, by connecting to community. And we want to hear a little tov uvracha, a little good and blessing to start out our Shabbat. Not necessarily what's happened to me, but hearing the good and the blessing that's happening to others makes me feel better too. So I'm going to start out with what we know. And what we know is that this last week, we've had a number of birthdays. Carter Cagle, Daniel Irwin, Wayne Goldberg, Alex Polikoff, Mark Cohen, Jordy Gittins, and Zachary Hoffman all had birthdays this week. So we want to wish them a mazel tov. Now, who here brings some kind of good and blessing to this week? There must be at least a couple of graduates out there, right? Oh, Hannah.
Well, not exactly a graduate, but close to.
Okay.
But I finished my junior year, and I still retain a 4.0.
Mazel tov. Very impressive. Very cool. I saw another hand.
My son Tyler Gibson was married on April 23rd.
Mazel tov. That's fantastic.
To a beautiful girl. Beautiful.
Wonderful. Wonderful to have the expansion of a family and to feel good about it is good, because it's not necessarily that they go together. So that's great. Sue. The new Star Trek. Okay. That's serious stuff there. So that's wonderful. All right. Who on this side of the room has good and blessing to report? Anybody? No, nobody's. Yes, please. So yeah, okay. You're the only person that gets to use that. But if it's nothing bad, then it's good. So that's fantastic too. Welcome everybody. So for me, let's see. I had the pleasure of watching many of my New York classmates receive their doctorate degrees. Yeah, I've told you that I received mine last month. I'm now a doctor of durability, a DD, or didn't die. And so I got this honorary degree, and now all my New York classmates received theirs this month, which was a delight to be able to talk to them and to celebrate with them. And other good news is that one of my classmates who has been living in and serving in Virginia is now coming to our region. Rabbi Peter Kessler is leaving his congregation in Virginia, and he's going to be the new rabbi in Galveston. So, okay, it's a bit of a schlep, but I'll see him once a year rather than every 5 or 6 years. So that's a good and blessing too. Anybody else have anything to report? Any good and blessings?
I'm here. Yay.
What's that?
I'm here. It's really nice.
You
to see
are,
everybody.
you're here, and we're so grateful that you're here. It's wonderful to have you back.
And I brought my mother.
And you brought your mother. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get Shabbat officially started with the kindling of Sabbath lights. We're going to be on page 1. It is my privilege to invite up Melissa Trapani to kindle the lights of Shabbat. Page 1, everyone.
In the beginning, when the Spirit of God hovered over the darkness, God's first creation was light. As we kindle these Shabbat lights, we attest to the majesty of God's work and rejoice in its beauty. Light is a symbol of divinity and the creative goodness. It is the outward sign of that inner peace which God has granted each of us. In hope and with love, we now welcome Shabbat with light.
Ooh, it's the air conditioning. It's that season. Blows it out.
I feel like I'm in a race. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahaldik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, whose presence fills the world, who hallows us with mitzvot and inspires us to kindle Shabbat lights.
May God bless us with Shabbat joy.
May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace.
All right, we're going to continue with Kabbalat Shabbat, receiving the Sabbath into our midst. And for those of you who are guests or visiting for the first time, you can see that the Hebrew is over on the right, the transliteration is over on the left. Sometimes a fairly loose translation is below. So we begin with Psalm 96. Let's turn to page 3 with Psalm 96. I'm going to start in the middle of the page. Yismechu hashamayim v'targel haaretz v'yiram hayam u'malo'o. Let the heavens rejoice and the earth exult. Let the sea and all within it thunder. The fields and everything in them exult. Then shall all the trees of the forest shout for joy at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth, and God will rule the world justly and its people faithfully. Or tzoroach letzadik v'yishrei lev simcha. Adonai reigns, let the land exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds surround God. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of God's throne, and God's lightning illumines the world. Light is sown for the righteous and radiance for the upright of heart. O you who are righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. We're going to continue now with Psalm 99, Ramemu in song.
And is my voice carrying over here? Do I need to adjust the microphone? Awesome, great. Thank you.
Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachvu l'hakodsho. Ramemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachvu l'hakodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Ramemu.
כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו.
We turn now to Psalm 29 on page 6. Havu l'Adonai b'elim, havu l'Adonai kavod va'oz, havu l'Adonai kevod shemo, ishtachavu l'Adonai b'havrat kodesh, Adonai oz le'mo yitein. Adonai yevarech et amo b'shalom. I've gotten used in the last few months to singing that by myself, so that was great. All right, we continue now with the culmination of the welcoming of Shabbat with Lecha Dodi, our beautiful mystical poem. We are going to be in the final stanza, welcoming the Sabbath into our midst. Richard, can I call upon you, and Don to call upon you to be our ushers to welcome the Sabbath bride? All right, we begin on page 7.
Lehadodi rakala, pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נשואה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך ומאורי, אורי שישברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה.
Please rise. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Go ahead. אורי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה וזולה, תוך אמוני ים סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. להדודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. No worries. I don't think we were going to mistake you for the Sabbath bride, but all right. So come in peace, you crown of your husband, with rejoicing and with joy. To those who are faithful, a treasured people. Come, O Sabbath, come, O bride. Psalm 92, a psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to give thanks to Adonai and to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night, with a harp, with voice and lyre in unison. Sadiq katama yifrak ve'erez v'levanon yizgeh, and the righteous shall bloom like a palm. They shall thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. We continue now with Hatzikash.
יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה הירותי וימליך מלכותי, והיהון וביומהון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר וירומם וינשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל, שמי קדושה ברכו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, ואמירן בעלמא, ואמרו amen.
Whether it be in body or in spirit, I invite you to please rise for the Baruch. We turn now to Ma'ariv Aravim to thank God for the constancy of our world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro Ma'ariv Aravim, b'chochma poteach sha'arim, u'vituna mishaneh itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mseder et hakokavim, v'mishmartehem barakia kirot sono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, u'mavdir yom u'mevi layla, u'mavdil ben yom u'ven layla, Adonai tzvaot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. May God govern us always to the end of time. Praised are you, Adonai, who makes the evening fall. Ahavat olam. Unending is your love for your people, Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts you have taught us. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and rejoice in your Torah and mitzvot forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life and the length of our days. And then your love shall never depart from our hearts. Blessed is Adonai, who loves the people Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch
Please be seated, everyone. We continue with the Viaham.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכלך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ובשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על משושות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיהם אני אדוני אלוהיהם אשר הוצאתיהם מארץ מצרים להיות להם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיהם.
In our spiritual journey in 3 weeks from now, we will find ourselves once again at the foot of Mount Sinai, celebrating the holiday of Shavuot. But as we continue our forward spiritual pilgrimage, never forget where we came from. We were once slaves, and now we are free. Emet ve'emunah. True and enduring, beloved and precious, awesome, good, and beautiful is this eternal teaching. This truth we hold to be forever certain. Adonai is our ruler, the rock of Jacob, shield of our salvation. Adonai, our God, you redeemed us from Egypt. You set us free from the house of bondage. For this, the people who felt your love sang songs of praise to you. Living God, high and exalted, mighty and awesome, who humbles the proud, raises the lowly, who frees the captive and redeems the oppressed, who is the answer to all who cry out. All praise to God Most High, the source of blessing. And like Moses and Israel, we sing this song of rejoicing. Mi chamocha, everyone.
Elim Adonai, Mihamo Hanele Malkodesh, Torah Tehilot Osefele, Torah Tehilot Osefele. Malehut Tehara Uvaneha, Mokea Yam Lifnei Moshe, Zelianu ve'amru, Zelianu ve'amru, Adonai Himo.
We interrupt our prayers of shared history and celebration with a prayer for our safety at night, Hashkivenu. It's always bothered me that even though this is really a personal prayer, we say it in the first person plural. We. What is that all about? And finally, it came to me. We're tucking each other in. So let's tuck each other in for the evening with Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Grant that we lie down in peace, Adonai our God, and raise us up tomorrow, O sovereign, to a life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace and guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield us from hatred and plague. Keep us from war and famine and anguish. Subdue our inclination to evil. O God, our guardian and helper, our gracious and merciful sovereign, give us refuge in the shadow of your wings. O guard our coming and our going, that always we have life and peace. We praise you, O God, whose sukkah of peace is spread over us, over all your people, Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai haforez sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We come now to the next part of our service, to Tefillah. I invite you, if able, to please rise.
Adonai sepatai tiftahu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, Elohei Leah, Ha'arel Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon Konel Chazalim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevii Geula Livnei bneihem, Le'man Shemo be'ahava, Melech Hoseh u'Mashiach Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol Avraham ve'Moshiach, Mechayeh chaim ve'chesed, Mechayeh hakol le'rachamim rabim, Tzomech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir atzurim, Umekayem emunato, Mishenei Achad, Mikamo Haval Gevurot, Umiromer Elav, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umasmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kedoshim b'kol yom yahadu ha'selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated, everyone. And now we come to mark and celebrate the Sabbath. We turn to page 21, and we're going to be in the middle of the page with the prayer and song, Yismechu v'malachu tacha. Those who keep the Sabbath and call it delight shall delight in your sovereignty for all time.
Yismechu v'malchutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malchutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. V'kadshei shvi Shabbat, kulam yizbehu, v'yitamu metu leHashem. Shabbat, Lemase Bereshit Shabbat, Yismechu v'malchuteha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei Honek Shabbat, Yismechu v'malchuteha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, Bekorei Honek Shabbat.
Great say. Adonai, our God, show favor towards your people Israel and lovingly receive our prayers. May the worship of your people always be acceptable to you. For you alone do we hold in reverence. Modim. And we give thanks to you, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. So we thank you and we recite your praises. Let all the living affirm you and praise your name as the God of our salvation and help. Praise to you, Adonai. Goodness is your name. All praises to you. Baruch atah Adonai hatoshimcha lakan elodot. We turn now to Shalom Rav, asking God for overflowing peace. And then immediately following that, we'll just take a few moments for our own silent prayers and meditations. Shalom Rav, everyone.
Shalom Rav al Israel hatasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel hatasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon lechol hashalom. Tasim leolam, Shalom Rav al Israel amha, tasim leolam, v'tov beineha levarech et amha Israel, bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Israel amha, tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel amha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום ואמרו אמן.
So, CKA Religious School is drawing to a close very quickly. This coming Sunday will be our last session, and we've got all kinds of fun and entertaining things to send them off with. And last week when I was here, of course, I normally lead a service, a sort of learner service that we do every day at 11 o'clock. And this last week, I decided, I'm going to give them a break from the repetition, the rote learning of prayers. And instead, I do a Ask the Rabbi, right? You can ask me any question you want. And so, of course, they immediately came out swinging. And I don't know whether it was the first graders or the kindergartens who asked, can you prove God exists? Right? And I gave my standard answer. I said, no one can prove God exists. They're only witnesses to God. There is no proof. But I can assure you this, that God is every bit as real as Texas, which brings a whole lot of hoots and hollers. That's probably the third graders, cat calls, things like that. Oh, no, that's not true. And then when we start the whole little exercise, right? We're sitting in Texas. No, we're not. We're sitting in a building. They stomp their feet on the ground. This is Texas. No, it's not. That's a carpet. Underneath the carpet. No, that's cement. And we keep dissecting and dissecting the idea, and then they change strategies, right? They're like, but Texas is in books. And I'm like, you don't think God is in books? God's in more books than there are books about Texas. And they're like, but Texas, we know where the boundaries are. And I said, if you go up into space and look down, show me where the boundaries of Texas are. Right. And of course, we go on and on like this. And I stump them because they're at a major disadvantage. They haven't practiced enough. But this works sometimes on college students, too. In any case, so we go through this little rigor. And it's really an important illustration of the fact that there are ideas that we all have that we hold very precious. And we find it very hard sometimes to define exactly what they are, but they still are a profound reality to us. All right. And our Torah portion this week, which is for me and for this congregation, as long as I'm in charge, Bahar, the Israeli schedule, rather than the tardy Jews of the diaspora who are one Torah portion behind. So we're studying Bahar, which talks about the land of Israel and how precious it is. It alone, of all the lands on the earth, is granted a Shemitah, a sabbatical year, 1 year and 7, where the land gets to rest. And God says, this is not your land, even though I'm theoretically giving it to you. It's my land, but I get to assign it, and I've assigned it to you. And one might think as a Jew that the land of Israel, our land, is holy. But in fact, all lands are holy, at least to someone. In the earth, the very earth, the ground beneath our feet, whatever we call it, is holy in some way. We know this. Our blessings do not say, for example, praised are you, Adonai, our God, for the fruit of Israel. We say, for the fruit of the earth, borei pri ha'adamah. The Psalms declare in a decidedly universal tone, the earth is Adonai's and all that it holds, the world and all its inhabitants. For God founded it upon the ocean and set it upon the farthest streams. Now, the Hebrew word for earth here in this text is haaretz, the land, which, interestingly enough, incidentally, is sort of modern Hebrew shorthand for the land of Israel. People will just say haaretz, and they mean Israel. But that doesn't define the land in any sort of way. But in context, which is everything, here in the Psalm, it's talking about all lands. All lands are intended. Psalm 104 declares, how many are the things you have made, Adonai? You have made them well with wisdom. The earth is full of your creations. And the psalm goes on to provide a list of earthly creations. Recently, I've been thinking about this psalm and, of course, about the importance of nature and the need for us to belong somewhere and someplace in particular, and for that someplace, that somewhere to belong to us. We see the power of nature all around us all the time, and it doesn't really obey human boundaries. One only needs to be walked down the sidewalk and watch all the plants growing up in between the cracks of the sidewalk to know that nature doesn't care about the boundaries we set. And we see this all the time. It is, after all, tornado season now in Texas. We see the news, renewed evidence of the psalmist's words. You make springs gush forth in the torrents, and they make their ways between the hills. But I also think not only about the power of nature, but the nature of power. How human beings are willing to fight and die for a place, whether it be Kharkov or Donbass or Jerusalem or the Galilee. The psalmist continually reminds us, God looks at the earth and it trembles. God touches the mountains and they smoke. But now we look at Ukraine on a daily basis and we see we make the earth tremble as well. We can touch the lands and render them smoke. Psalm 104 continues, I will sing to Adonai as long as I live. For all my life, I will chant hymns to my God. May my prayers be pleasing to God. I will rejoice in Adonai. I don't think we have any choice, regardless of what our circumstances are. We stand poised between the awesome power of nature and the awesome fury of humanity. It seems like we have to choose. But I think we have little choice but to sing to God. At times, that is all that can rescue us from natural or human anger. We require such reverence not only before God, but before nature and before the places we love, in appreciation of how special they are, especially when we have our own place, our own space. For too long, we've believed that we are the masters of nature and we get to define what the world is. We can build better locks and dams, higher levees, but nature cannot be tamed. In fact, some have suggested that our locks and dam systems have made things worse. We can also build armies, navies, air forces to tame those who would take those lands that we insist are ours. We also see the intractable human desire to control the land. We see, for example, Vladimir Putin's obsession with Ruski Mir, probably a term you're not familiar with, but someone you should be. Ruski Mir means the Russian world or the Russian order. And it's a desire and a belief that Russia, the nation, should control all the lands it once controlled, especially those lands of related Slavic peoples, like Ukraine. Not only that, but Mr. Putin perceives Kiev, or Kyiv, depending on whether you're Russian or Ukrainian, to be the cradle of Russian civilization. And thus he's willing to sacrifice countless Russian lives and a not bottomless Russian treasure to take control of it. We also feel the fury of Palestinians who feel it is intolerable that someone else should have political control over land they regard as their own, that someplace is not enough. It must be all of what we imagined belongs to us. There's actually a term for this. It's called revanchism, and that is the desire to claim every territory that we believe belongs to our ethnicity or our nation or our state. It's the lesser part of Hitler's ambitions to control all the lands where German-speaking people are or once were. It's part of the ideology of a certain kind of Islam that says any place that was once governed by Islam should only be governed by Islam, and therefore it must be reclaimed. These are the issues we're dealing with right now. Is there a way out of clashes of human desire, out of our universal impulse to possess all that we revere, to insist that land we honor must also be under our control? Reverence combined not so much with power, but with understanding and appreciation, I think, would be a much better way. We would do well to remind ourselves of God's admonition to Job. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations? Speak if you have understanding. Our Torah portion, Bahar, speaks of this. In Bahar, we learn of the Shemitah and the Yovel, the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year, in an eternal cycle where we might otherwise pursue, acquire, expand our presence on the land. We are told, no, there is a limit. Come the seventh year, we have to set aside ambition, acknowledge that the true owner of the land, whether it be the land of Israel or the world, is God, not us. And then we are commanded to share. And in the Yovel, we have to acknowledge that the land has a history, that others owned it before we did. And so it is, according to the Bible, ancestral lands are restored to their descendants. Everybody has a place once more. And so I think, given everything that's happening in Ukraine and the struggles we continue to have in Israel, we need to relearn this truth. All lands are indeed holy. And it's not just for one people. It's not just our backyard, but the whole earth. Judaism from the Bible to Zionism tells us that this one land is important for us. And in fact, Israel's Declaration of Independence sort of blurs the issue a little bit when it says Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Sort of. Here, their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Kind of. It's a little inaccurate. Our peoplehood really starts out in Egypt. And the crisis of the Exodus first molds us into a shared identity. The Torah was given at Sinai, which is a wilderness, not the land of Israel. It was given there, perhaps to make clear that it was given to all. It was given there, moreover, so that no land could claim the Torah as its own. It was given so that other faiths could also participate, and those faiths that even start in or around Haaretz. Did you know that the holiest place for the Baha'i faith is in the Galilee? It's actually two cities, Haifa and Akko. The two founders of the Baha'i faith come from those two places, and they therefore maintain shrines, very elaborate places, to commemorate their faith. They don't own the land of Israel, but when we're willing to share it, they can celebrate and find their particular place in it. And for a group of people, you probably think about even less, the Druze. Their most sacred place is the Israeli town on the coast of the Galilee called Tiberia or Tiberia. Their sacred founder has his tomb there. There's a fantastic complex that sits on the south end of the city. And that's the Holy Land of the Druze. And we can share it. Unfortunately, Muslims too make a claim on this land, and which is fine. But their claim is more global, if not more ancient. And they claim their exclusive right to it. And so we fight, just as Russians and Ukrainians are now fighting for Ukraine, the birthplace of Ruthian Empire. And I'm not going to get into the complexities of being Belarusian versus Russian versus Ukrainian. But suffice to know that modern Ukraine is a nation of its own and it's entitled to be. Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, is my favorite land. It's pretty cool. Okay, New Mexico competes with it a little bit. But it's a fate, was that, yeah?
There are a lot of lights.
There's a lot alike, right? That's right. We get confused about them sometimes. Right. Much of Jewish history occurred in the land of Israel. And I love nothing more than to hike in the land, its wadis, to play in its waterfalls, to hang out on its boulevards, to drink its coffee. But it's not the only land, nor is it only for Jews, or is it only for Palestinians. Reverence for the land, the sabbatical year teaches us, suggests there is something that we need to apply to all lands. We must restore reverence for the earth and the land, yes, and acknowledge its importance to each of us. But we must learn, however, much we don't want to, the biblical lesson of Shemitah, that we have to be able to accommodate. We have to be able to share on some level. Humans can no longer afford to do whatever we want on any land. And so let us take the lesson from our Torah and cultivate a bit of humility towards the lands we think are our own and restore a reverence for the earth, all the earth, in our souls and in our hearts. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. All right, it is time for announcements, and the fabulous officer in charge of that is Ephraim, our Sabbath bride.
Thank you.
Got it.
Oh, I got it here too. There were birthdays last week.
Oh, no, I already covered that.
You already
Get down
covered?
to the announcements.
Okay, now I'll jump down to announcements. Medicine bottle recycle program. The Tikkun Olam is sponsoring a medicine bottle recycle program. You could place these bottles in the milk crate in front of the office to be picked up. Check out the post on the website or on the blast for all the instructions on how to prepare the bottles. And through the support of the reusing of these bottles in developing countries, all donations will be greatly appreciated. CKA honors its veterans. On Sunday, May 15th, which is day after tomorrow, on the eve of the Armed Forces Day, we will be holding a ceremony dedicating our new veterans plaque to honor all our members who have served in the armed forces. We hope to establish this as a tradition and celebrating all our service people, past, present, and future. We hope the families of Kol Ami will join us to recognize our past and present soldiers, sailors, and Marines, airmen, and guardsmen who have sacrificed their time and risked their lives in the service of our nation. Changes to the streaming service. We've heard quite a bit of feedback on streaming services, so we've made some additional adjustments. We will guarantee live service on the first and third Friday evening of each month, starting in May. In addition, we will try to cover all the other Fridays. However, since this is done by volunteers, we might miss a Friday on occasion. Hopefully, that meets everybody's needs. If you would like to help and volunteer, please let Bob in the office know. And then the last day of religious school. It's hard to believe, but this Sunday, May 15th, is our last day of religious school for the year. We want to be sure to send the kids off with a big celebration. We will be providing a hot dog lunch to the kids, and we might let adults have 1 or 2 hot dogs as well. There will be various games and competitions between the students and staff. Don't miss out on a chance to defeat your teacher. So please note that, so they can participate, that high school students should come at 9 a.m. The festivities will end at 12:30. The event will culminate in what we will hope will become a CKA tradition for the end of the year, school year, a color war. We'll divide up into 4 separate teams and let them each do their best to show that they are the champions of the year. Religious school parents, please watch your email and expect more details about the weekend that the recommended dress to keep from ruining clothes and any other information you may need. We are excited to end the year with such a big celebration. We can't wait to see everybody there. As always, you can find specific details on these announcements and anything else you might need on the congregation website. Okay, Misha Barrett. May those who bless our ancestors also bless Harry Anthony, Joyce Bloom, Natalie Bavino, Sandy Cook, Mark Davis, Francine Feingold, Jackson Finch, Doug Friedman, Michelle Griffith, Carol Jones, Molly Kalig, Deb Kaufman, Toby Kennedy, Clayton Kirkwood, Lauren Koenig, Alex Koenig, Gina LaMonica, Deb Ledden, Matt Levine, Phyllis Lorelei, Shirley Lunsford, Paul Redwood Jr., Sandy Gerber Rubin, Adrian Sandler, Myra Schuschler, Dale Seaver, and Happy Waterman. Is there anybody else? Yes. Thank you.
David Lewis.
Thank you. Yes,
Jim Whitmore and Chrissy Moran.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And Rabbi? Okay, please join me in the Misha Barrett. Oh, I'm sorry.
Get your bang out of your butt for me.
Okay. Misha Barrett, may the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Makor Abraham Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. You're welcome.
There is one other announcement we didn't cover. 3 weeks from now, as I said, Shavuot, the holiday of Shavuot, will be upon us. We will be having a Tikkun Leil Shavuot, that is an evening study. Because we're wimps here in Texas, it'll go from sunset until midnight. None of this all the way through stuff. But we've already got some wonderful presentations lined up. Lindsay is going to be teaching us about Debbie Friedman, her music and her life. Bruce is going to be teaching us about all the most popular Jewish plagues. Bubonic plague, typhus, cholera, all the historical things that have afflicted us and caused us trouble. And we're going to be having Taylor Diaz is going to be teaching us about Rashi, Jew, Frenchman, Hebrew speaker, a fascinating study of his interuse of language in Hebrew and French. And then I'm going to be teaching a class on how do you talk about Bill Cosby? All right. And I'm going to bring an example from the Talmud to help us try and frame that experience. So I hope you'll be able to turn out May 4th. It's a Saturday night. We'll be, what's that?
I think it's June.
Is it, why do I say June? Because June 4th, Saturday night, we'll be beginning at 8. We'll finish at midnight. We'll have cheesecake. We'll have decaf coffee. We'll have caffeinated coffee. We'll have all kinds of things. So come and study with us and celebrate the time of the giving of the Torah. All right, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite you to turn to page 82. And in my ever so annoying tradition of just randomly inviting people up who show up and fall into my radar to help me with the Elenu, Deborah Gibson, would you come on up? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're able, please rise.
I have to.
You have to. It's a commode. Elenu, everybody.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלא המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרה בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אלון, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים נמעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אלוהו.
Please be seated. Bayom hahu, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. The leaves fall as from afar. They fall with slow and lingering descent. And in the night, the heavy earth too falls from out of the stars and into the solitude. And thus all must fall. This hand of mine must fall, and lo, the other. It is the law. But there is one who holds the falling infinitely softly in his hand, in her hands. And so it is we take time now to recall with love and gratitude the names of those whom we have lost recently, as well as those whose yahrzeits, whose anniversaries of death occur this week. We begin by thinking in Shiva of all those individuals around the world who have died prematurely by violence in the past week, but we also include in Shiva, connected to our community, Joel Schnee, Deborah Gibson's cousin. Is there anyone else observing? Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else observing Shiva? For Shloshim, the congregation continues to mourn the loss of Thomas Epstein, father of Marcia Epstein, and Bronia Rubshanson, forgive me, but I'm going to have to clarify that one. Great aunt of Casey Flansmount. Is there anyone else observing Shloshim? Lost someone last month. Here at Congregation Kol Ami, we want to remember these individuals connected to our community, whose yahrzeits, whose anniversaries of death occurred this week. Jerry Cagle, Tom Gildenblatt, Sidney Goff, and Max Levin. Is there anyone else observing a yahrzeit? For those who mourn, it is our fervent wish that the memory of your loved ones grows sweeter with passing time. For the rest of us, we'd like to show our support and our compassion for you and your loss by rising together with you and reciting Kaddish on page 85. Please rise if you're able. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Israel b'galal u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'amei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha baruchu le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah mim shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mroma hu yaseh shalom Aleinu ve'el kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace for all who mourn and comfort all the bereaved among us. And let us say amen. Please be seated. So for my closing song, on the theme of being able to live together in whatever land we hold sacred, I thought we would conclude with Lo Yisagoy, the words of Isaiah. Nation shall no longer make war against nation, neither shall they study war anymore. However, I've forgotten it's not actually in our book. Sorry about that. But if you know it, please sing along.
So good news. It has very few words.
It has very few
Very
words.
few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're good. You can manage 9 words. You got this. Or give you second option. You can just hum along with this part. So if you don't want to bother with the words, you can just do that.
לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה.
Let's do that one more time, everybody together. And
לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה. לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב, לא ילמדו עוד מלחמה.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I hope you will all join us in our social hall for Oneg, a little wine, a little bread, a few snacks, and let's rejoice together in Shabbat. All right.
Yeah.